never chose him. So whose fault is it that they lost? It's their fault that they lost. Because the process was flawed in the beginning. I'm building a porch right now. We spent 2 weeks making sure the damn foundation was right.
Yeah.
If the foundation is wrong, the whole goddamn thing is gonna be wrong. And that's why they lost.
You don't mind.
Okay, I appreciate you.
Shaw was the third pick. He was the third person.
He was the
third person.
Who was number 1 and 2, Ed?
And now it's getting bad at this person.
No, it's okay. I mean, it's okay. It's behind. I know Bart Stupak was out there.
Not the first or
Yeah.
second choice.
And
No.
that was the choices of people.
I
Yeah.
understand it, but the first choice and second choice, when it went out to the people, said no. The Char was the pick.
That's why
Rebecca, what you're thinking? Hold on, guys. Let's get some.
So
Give
I
and
guess
take.
when I sort of hear this conversation, I'm struck by, so what are we gonna do? And why, and I said this before the primary, and I continue to say it now, why are we looking to the party to give us the answers and to give us the next step? So actually, just last night, I was at a Grosse Pointe Democrats meeting, and I talked to one of my colleagues and supporters, Ed Keelan, who makes it his personal business to just register precinct delegates. Everywhere he goes, he just registers them. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna do that for young people and women, because my mother just got elected a precinct delegate, and she didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
But how are we engaging people in the democratic process who don't consider themselves card-carrying Democrats, who don't go to conventions, and who don't spend their Saturday afternoons at political meetings? So the challenge I will make is, are we looking at what seats are gonna be open in 2016? Are we looking at what seats are gonna be open in 2018? And I will tell you, as somebody who, this personal experience was awful and amazing at the same time. I was just watching the news, I don't know if anybody saw it, on Channel 2 last night, and I thought, we wonder why we can't get good candidates to run. Because we don't support them, we treat them like crap once they're there, and the people who are doing good work are.
You're talking about the M.L. Elric story? What a tragedy! What a tragedy!
And I saw it and I said,
Yeah.
I know these people, these are my neighbors, right?
It was scathing.
And we expect elected officials to be perfect.
So Mike Duggan comes to office with $1 million plus in his bank account, so he's not going to have any negative IRS relationships. So last night, M.L. Elric, say it again, Keith.
Michael Scott.
No, but my point, but you hear what I'm saying to Rebecca's point. Go ahead.
Was, there are, and I know, having, run against an interesting person, but I saw that and I said, that is awful.
It's awful.
And we expect people to want to run for governor?
Well, he just.
And this is what we do
Yeah.
to local elected officials.
What M.L. Elric announced, the most significant impact of that story was at the very end. He says,
And whoever's coming
and whoever comes next,
whoever's coming next.
we're going to beat you down. We're going to hunt. We're going to turn over every stone. If you've got anything in your closet, any negative experience ever, they showed where Gabe Leland went to jail for 24 days as a teeny bopper for marijuana. I know, but my point, do you hear what I'm just saying? They showed somebody who house went into foreclosure. It was 5 out of the 8 city council persons. They chose to opt out on Santillo since she had moved on. It was scathing. And so you ask an important question. Just for a couple minutes, guys, we're going to wrap up because we're over our time. But several things, I think we've already agreed on several important things. We were here really not to necessarily articulate the agenda, but to just sort of decompress and debrief and assess what really happened. But we all agree that off year is an important time to engage and to educate. I think we all agree to that. You heard the report about social media. Whatever we're doing, if we're not engaging young people and using social media, we're set up for failure. I mean, it's going to be certain death. Am I correct? Yes. Rick highlighted something that should not be forgotten or overlooked. 93% of Detroit said, "To hell with Rick Snyder," and he's standing there taking a bow on all his successes. 93% of the folk who did vote in the city of Detroit said, "We don't like you, Mr. Snyder. So whatever you think you're doing for us, that ain't our priority." I was a firefighter with Cliff for years, and when we would get called to assist EMS, one of the first things they trained us on was if there's a person who's injured, before you do anything for him, ask him, where does it hurt? What's hurting? So don't jump off the fire truck or the EMS rig with a backboard when they really need a cervical collar. But you won't know that unless you ask them. Do you hear what I'm saying? So I'm saying, guys, we've got, I didn't hear anybody, I think Keith, you referenced it, who talked about jobs for Detroiters in their campaign? Who talked about access to opportunity? Who talked about restoring democracy? Who talked about the educational challenges that we live in this city? Who talked about the hell with the emergency manager, which all of us voted against? Who talked about it? And now you turn around and say, Detroiters, you didn't go to the polls? Democrats, where were you? You didn't talk about the issues. Who talked about the significance of labor? What Rick and Brother Peacock highlighted. Now, you talk about what we do next. How many of us going to join Black Friday demonstration? Or is that for somebody else? Do you hear what I'm saying? So there are a lot of things that need to be done along the way, Keith. And I'll just say one other thing, too. I don't believe it's a matter of people don't care. I think it's absolutely a matter of people don't believe it matters. People don't believe it matters. And for all these years, for the last 20 years, many of us have gone door to door, and people know my name on Philadelphia, and because I've been on their porch 4 or 5 times. I'm saying, I need you to register. I need you to go vote. Now they say, Brother Wheeler, you were here a couple years ago. You were here 4 years ago. Then you told us if we voted. But look around us. It's worse. So, guys, we're not having the right conversation. Go ahead, Keith.
And lastly, this is where we go from here from our own perspective. In Gary, Indiana, in 1972, all the black folks from the country got together to come up with a political agenda that was going to correct the legislative process and the economic process. I learned something in Mike Duggan's campaign, and I was in the credit union yesterday. Folks was talking about pride, talking about how do we do business with one another. They're not talking about the institutions of the Democratic Party. How do we solve our own problem within ourselves? And so the bottom line here, I came up and I was gonna spend my own money during the election. I was gonna bring back the pride, bring back the power using Coleman Young and Barack Obama, and this was my mission statement. A mission to unite, recognize our heritage, to build a sense of community, and to control our own destiny through economics and education. Pride to me is this: voting, educating our children, taking back our neighborhoods, owning business, and recognizing black is beautiful. And then power means control our own destiny and restoring democracy, loyalty, and trust. And all I say to you is this: we need to come up with a convention similar to 1971, bring everybody who's a part of it, who want to transform urban agenda. I ain't talking about the rich. I'm happy for them. I want my people to have some of that money too.
I think, anybody else? Dion, were you going to say something? I'm sorry, I know I shut you.
Well, no, I just had a question. Keith had made a statement earlier, and I just wanted, one of the things that we don't do, or we haven't, or maybe we've tried, I don't know. But you mentioned the point when we talk about the political landscape, who should run, who should be in the position. We said that Mark Schauer shouldn't have been the one, Sandy Levin should have stayed in his seat, and Gary Peters should have ran. We're not at the table saying that.
That's the problem.
My point exactly, that's the problem. So, and what I see, what we need to do is collectively, once again, I make the statement about developing a PAC and getting our money behind those African-American candidates that need the money, the financial backing to run for a political office. But at the same time we do that, we need to, once again, set an agenda so that our message is resounding across the state of Michigan, across the city of Detroit, and we're putting our issues in the forefront. And if we have, it used to be a time where if it didn't pass the smell test in the city of Detroit, and Coleman Young said no, it didn't go through the state of Michigan. So how do we get back to that point?
Yeah.
And that's about bridging the gap between the younger generation and the ones I pay homage to, the older generation. How do we bring that back so we can get that education, so that when we're on social media, we can explain these aspects and these avenues to those that are just watching Scandal, and they understand minimum wage issue for women and you know the disparity that's there, and they can relate it to themselves so that they understand that, okay, I'm in this situation here in the city of Detroit, but midterm election is coming up, and I need to have a governor that's going to have my back. And is that Gary Peters? How is that Gary Peters? I don't even know this guy.
Good point. Good point. Simone?
I've think we have to control the narrative. I talk to Rev and Hess about this all the time. We have to take charge and define the narrative as we see it collectively. The danger in that, though, is that we're not defining it solely as we see it. I appreciate Keith's definition of power and pride. We have to ask young people, do they even know what it is? Do they have it? A young man told me, he said, Simone, voting is tied to consciousness. It's tied to a heart, a soul. It's a lot of young brothers and sisters don't have that. They don't have heart. They don't have a soul. They don't have a consciousness, some of the things that they're doing. And so we have a certain subset that a lot of remedial work has to be done with. Then there's the side that I get to see on the funding side of politics. This group that we're talking about needing to educate, that's not the priority of people in politics. It's just not, y'all. And so if you're not educated, good. That means we ain't got to deal with you. Hopefully you won't even be a
that's
part of the process.
That's interesting. Yeah.
The reality is he won by 128,000 votes. I was asking, how come we just couldn't, because the people that came to the polls was coming anyway. So how come we couldn't just target 129,000 specific individuals who otherwise wouldn't come and just make sure they came to the polls versus spending all the money and all the effort that we did. The other piece, I think is, I like Keith's conversation I've been sharing with Hess. I would love for us to have an African-American roundtable of Southeast Michigan where we came together. We gotta really look at where black people are now. It's not in Detroit like it used to be. We also have to put a priority and a challenge to elected officials like myself outside of Detroit, that in your county, on the stage you sit on, you pass those resolutions. You push your state legislator to back up off or say something about emergency manager. Miss Rep out of Ann Arbor, because that's where African Americans have moved. We have to look across this state and see where black political power is up and coming. That's on school boards. If you look at elected officials where African Americans sit in predominance, we found this when we were looking to provide a list of names of African Americans that could potentially run. It was a shocker how many sat on school boards, not county commissions, because we know that's more predominant down in Southeast Michigan. So that's our farm team, those folks sitting on school boards when we talk. So is going as precinct delegates. When we were pulling, John Conyers came here for election day and he said,